Welcome to the show, guys. Part of our Workplace Confidential special, where we talk about topics that happen in the workplace. But first, let's go with the latest in coronavirus. We're now up to 19,070 cases. 75 cases. And now we have 60. And now the deaths in here is 368 plus 5, which is 373. Total cases here in the state of Texas, 653K plus 4310. 13,362 deaths plus 181. None recovered here in Texas, none recovered in U.S. County, none recovered here in the U.S. Worldwide, 17.4 million have recovered, and there's a lot of deaths, 26.2 million, and 867K deaths. And Harris County, they're not doing a good job. They're going to be up to 1 million. They're going to be up to 1 million if something doesn't get done. 42 for Tarrant County. We need to keep these cases low, period. If you don't, El Paso County, the lowest here is Hays County, 15. So if you go up to 10,000, it's going to be the worst. Loving County, 7. Look, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. You've got to make sure the cases are low. If we don't lower these cases, how are children going to get back in school? Which, here is the very latest. As schools are reopening for CCSD, there are less teachers out there because some of them decided to quit because of this. And nothing else is going to get done until something is in where they have shortage of teachers. What I recommend is happening is people from the neighborhood can teach. They don't have to have the teaching skills or a teaching degree. Like substitute teachers from the neighborhood. If we do that, then many people can come back into school. At least no one here in the Flower Bluff area had to quit their jobs because of this. And the people were denied this because of the virus. Because of the issues. What needs to happen here? What needs to happen here is that we got to get more teachers going in. We got to get substitute teachers coming in to teach the students. We got to have substitute teachers start to be teachers. Because if you don't know, substitute teachers do qualify as teachers. The difference is with substitutes, they just call roll and sit there and do nothing. But we need to train these substitutes to become teachers. Instead of just letting them sit there doing nothing. We've got to train them. If we don't train these substitutes by a certain day, it's all going to be hell. And if it's hell, and I don't know what hell looks like, but it's gonna look like that if teachers don't get the message here. Let's go to the very latest, since the biggest thing here that we need to have done here, teachers need to be brought back. Teachers have already quitted. We gotta bring them back. We need a mandate to bring them back, and they say nope. But you're gonna say, well, your students depend on you, and it's like, I don't care. I'm not gonna get sick. That's why we're gonna have masks. We're gonna have sanitary. We're gonna have a lot of things happening here if this doesn't get straightened out. If nothing happens, then the biggest concern ever here is that the schools are going to close again. There's not going to be any sporting events. We're not going to play instruments in the band. And most importantly, we're not going to run district in any sports if something does not get done here. Something needs to get done, and if it does not get done by a certain time, people are going to get in trouble here. We're going to go back, we're going to extend online learning. We do not want to do that. We want the students back in the classroom. And to do that, we have to follow these protocols. So if I were you teachers watching out there, I would just think about what you did. Because when you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. And when you choose to quit your job, you choose the consequences of abandoning your students. The biggest thing ever here that needs to happen, the last thing ever is for you to quit your jobs. We do not want that. What we need to do for you, we pay teachers. Here in the block, the teachers, we're not getting raises because of the project that's going on Waldron Road. But that's not what we're talking about here. Teachers, you need to be back in the classroom by a certain time before school starts. And teachers here in the love, I hope you make the right decision to listen to what Principal Crenshaw said. We need students back. The administration wants them back. You need them back. The whole district wants them back. Next, we're going to talk about workplace harassment and everything. The 11 types of harassment in all workplaces and how to stop them after the break. Alright, here we go. Workplace harassment. We talked about sexual harassment before, where it was okay to have sex in the building 2 days ago. Now we're going to focus on the other types of workplace harassment, like from eyesight.com. Discriminatory harassment. It happens when it's like racial harassment. It happens when the people do racial slurs, do racial insults, racial jokes, degrading comments, disgust, intolerance differences. Then there's gender harassment and religious harassment. Religious harassment is something interconnected with racial harassment, but it narrows especially on victims' religious beliefs. Like holidays, traditions, customs, the cruel religious jokes, degrading stereotypical comments, pressures to convict religions. Disability-based harassment. Like, it's directed towards individuals who either suffer from disability themselves, are acquainted with a sick, disabled person or people, use disability services, sick leave, workers' comp. A person with disability may experience harassment in the form of harmful teasing, patronizing comments, referrals, refusals to reasonably leave, accommodate, or isolation. Age-based harassment, sexual orientation, is starting to gain traction in a legitimate type of workplace. Then there's age-based harassment. Like they may be teased, insulted, left out of activities, meetings, or unfairly criticized simply because of their age. We can't have that happen, period. You are who you are. Then there's personal harassment. People do, it's bullying. You don't bully people in the workplace, period. That includes inappropriate comments, offensive jokes, personal humiliation, critical remarks, ostracizing behaviors, intimidation tactics. Then there's physical harassment. Direct threats to inflict harm, physical attacks, hitting, shoving, kicking, threatening behavior, shaking fists angrily, destroying property and intimidate. Employees of some industries move at higher risk of workplace violence. These include healthcare workers, peace officers, social services employees, teachers and educators, retail staff, and public transit drivers. Then there's power harassment. It's a common form of workplace harassment that is characterized by power disparity between the harasser and the harassed. Examples of this could be excessive demands, demeaning demands, and the intrusion into the employee's personal life. Then there's physiological harassment. It has a negative impact on a person's psychological well-being. Examples of this: isolating and denying the victim's presence, belittling or trivializing the victim's thoughts, opposing or challenging everything the victim says, discrediting or spreading rumors about the victim. This list goes on. There's cyberbullying. We always talk about this on our show. There are ways to stop this. It's a thing called online harassment. People can share humiliating things about the victim by mass email and mass chat. People can spread lies, gossip about the victim on social media, send harassing instant text messages or text messages directly to the victim, and there are cyberbullying laws. Federal law doesn't explicitly cover cyberbullying yet, particularly for adults. But the Justice Department has noted that legal action, the Department of Justice has learned that legal action is possible by prosecuting the online misbehavior under another law. Retaliation. It's just like when someone files a complaint. Employee A files a complaint about employee B. Employee B finds out. Employee B harasses employee A in revenge. Employee B in this case will harass employee A in retaliation. Then there's sexual harassment, that we talked about a few days ago. Sexual harassment in the workplace is a form of unlawful discrimination and is taken seriously by a court. If you need a document that holds employees accountable to prevent sexual harassment in the office, you need to download the sexual harassment policy template, and we'll have that on our website at jcarbon67.wixsite.com/givemeabreak. Examples of this would be sharing sexual photos or pornography, posting sexual posters, sexual comments, jokes, questions, inappropriate sexual touching, inappropriate sexual gestures, invading personal space in a sexual way. An example of this was on Dateline back in 1995, where this woman was accused of sexual harassment. Her and a lot of other women went to the EEOC, but the boss at Dell Labs, Daniel Wasson, denies these allegations. But his attorneys say he never done this. %, lack of education is acceptable, especially a recent EEOC study concluded that anywhere between 25 and 85% of women have been a victim of sexual harassment. The lowest number is 25%. This equates to 1 in 4 women experiencing workplace sexual harassment. Then there's another type of sexual harassment. It's quid pro quo. Quid pro quo means this and that. In this situation, as a result, the manager, CEO, or employee may offer some value to sexual favor, like an example I talked about for Daniel Wasson. Examples of this would people receive a job offer, they receive a promotion, they would receive a raise, receive opportunities, avoid demotion, and avoid termination. Then there's third-party harassment. The victims of this are obviously young adults with low status and low power jobs, like cashier or sales associate. The position in the company, their lack of experience, and their reluctance to cause a scene and make them ideal victims. Then there's verbal harassment, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Examples of this: threatening, yelling, insulting, or cursing at the victim in public or private. If this is a law of someone in a protected class, it's unlawful. It can be the result of personality conflicts in the workplace that escalated beyond a casual eye or something more serious. Verbal abuse is often not illegal. Instead, verbal harassment for someone can be constantly mean or unpleasing. For instance, a lot of verbal harassment can be particularly damaging since it goes unnoticed and unresolved. There are ways to deal with this. Have rules put in place. Like, no profanity in the workplace, period. If you have a rule that says no profanity in the workplace, people will get the message. We'll have more about profanity in the workplace, which is similar to profanity, which is similar to verbal harassment on Friday, tomorrow. But when we come back, before we go on break, here is the negative effects. A workplace bullying expert found trends and negative effects of verbal abuse at work. It's commonly says to drive feelings of shame and guilt, loss of passions, and even increased blood pressure. Now, when we return, we're going to give you 3 ways to stop this, to stop every single harassment. For all managers out there, this is a must-see. Stay with us. So, as a manager of your company, whether you work at McDonald's or an office, what can you do to stop harassment? Well, here are 3 ways from some experts. Number 1 is implement, update, and revive your policy. Whatever verb is acceptable into your policy situation, you must do it. If you don't have a policy yet, you need to create one. And I will put the link to this website along with the code of conduct template also on our website, jcomics7.wixsite.com. If you do, but it's out of date, it has been updated since the last century. Here is how, and we'll have that 18 of the best code of conduct examples also on the website. If you do, but no one cares, or even though it exists, dust it off, and then enforce it. If there's a policy that's accurately enforced, staff have no reason not to abide by it, but as long as there's no guideline to conduct misconduct, you're asking for chaos. Enforce discipline. Like in some cases, like if you do something you're not supposed to do, you can get written up. It's disciplinary action. Do your write-ups, you're out. Next, you need to train your staff. Train your employees on what harassment is, how to recognize it, and how to report it. So this is for all the ladies. If a male employee is sexually harassing you, you need to report it to your supervisor immediately. And your supervisor will take care of it. Politely do it. Don't just be like all shocked. Lastly, implement, update, and revive your internal complaint system, or ICS. Policy and training can only do so much. To submit policy and a step in where it's not enough, an internal complaint system like the ICS ethics hotline can make employees feel safe and supported. Unless you are a formal complaint system that acknowledges the victim's rights to anonymity and security formulation, they probably won't come forward. Victims will have potential backlash, and the lack of support might be worse than harassment they face. So that's it for your. That's it for the workplace harassment thing. Coming up tomorrow, we are going to talk about verbal abuse and sexual and profanity in the workplace. Actually, coming up in a moment, I'm going to talk to you about profanity in the workplace and how you can stop it. Plus, how not to reply to all emails. Stay tuned. Look, you guys, I've dealt with this a lot of times. I'm telling you about this right now. Inappropriate language is not allowed in any workplace by any person, employer, or staff. Unacceptable. And look, just because the First Amendment gives you the right to free speech, that does not mean you can say whatever you want to your boss. There are profanity rules put in place by your workplace. If they have a policy where you can't use any profanity, then you can't do that. All schools prohibit profanity, and if there's nothing you can do about it, well, shame on you. There is some things you need to do. Enforce it. Write your employees up for profanity and use. And say, look, you've been using profanity a lot. This is unacceptable. We have a policy about this. I'm going to write you up. And just let them accept it. We need to make sure that none of this happens again. And if it always happens and you don't know what to do, there is help out there. And like I talked about earlier, there's verbal abuse that can lead to profanity. Like we talked about. You've got to update your handbook, you have to update your policy, and if you don't, and throw out the old book, they're not going to abide by it. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now it's on to replying to all emails. You send an email to one person. And yet, like you send an email to one person asking about your schedule, and yet you actually clicked on reply. You think you pressed reply, but unfortunately, you clicked on reply all. We have a thing called don't reply all. If you click on reply all, then I think there's nothing you can do about it, but you're going to have to quickly, I think what you're going to have to do is quickly delete your email before everyone else sees it. And people will be like, oh, what's this? I mean, there is something that has to be done, and if we don't reply to all emails, don't even like that person who was like running around like tearing up all the computers. Don't be like that person. Can you recall these emails? Can you get it back? I don't think you can. But there are ways to do this. Don't even have them labeled. Like if you accidentally click on just click on reply so that stuff like this does not happen again. I'll be back in a moment. The preview of tomorrow's giving me a break, which is the last day of our Workplace Confidential Week. You see people doing it everywhere, using their phones while in the workplace. Tomorrow, on the last day of our Workplace Confidential Week, we're going to tell you what you can do to stop people using their cell phones, to implement a cell phone policy. As you know, cell phone use while at work is prohibited. It states right there in the workplace, in your work handbook. The only time you're able to use your phone is before your shift, during your break, or after your shift. We're going to tell you what you can do to prevent that from happening. Plus more COVID. That's tomorrow on Give Me a Break. And that's all for this edition. Give Me a Break Thursday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Friday night. For all of us here on YouTube, have a great night. Take care of yourself and each other. Good night.